This is Lewis Hart for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store and William Hill. Delighted today. After a while, we're here on the pier. Delighted to be joined with Ben Shalom. It's here, mate. When you sort of have fights like this, when the weather's like this, where it's as beautiful as it is, and I'm here, sitting here talking to you, mate, as a promoter, you can't really ask for much more, can you?
You have to enjoy these weeks, otherwise, what else can you enjoy? I remember coming here last year and it was almost like too good to be true with the Isaac Chamberlain, one of the fights of the year, but being down here and seeing how it sold. But to be here 12 months later and be selling 15,000, that is a dream. I think even when we signed Chris Billam-Smith, the aim was always to get to the stadium. It shows what British boxing can do when you have a local hero, you have fans that support the football team, that want to get behind someone, and the guy that's fighting for a world title. It's just been unbelievable, the momentum in this. And 2 fights later to be fighting at the stadium is pretty incredible. Amazing stage for Chris Billam-Smith.
And when you look at someone like Chris Billam-Smith, he's grafted his way to the top. Okolie's, when I look at it, I think Okolie's a guy with natural talent, natural ability, is gifted. Chris Billam-Smith, he had it the hard way. So when he grafts to this point, and I think I remember I read an article of him sort of 5 years ago saying it's his dream. When you deliver that dream for him, and he creates that dream for himself, that this is his destiny, it must feel, it's all for him to sort of win on Saturday night.
Look, he's done the hard work, but for me, it shows what can be done with a fighter, and we're saying the same to Adam Azim and Ben Whittaker, who were just starting out their careers, is build your local fan base, build it properly. British fans love British boxing and they love local heroes. We've seen it with Josh Warrington, we've seen it with Ricky Hatton back in Manchester in the day, and that legacy lives on. And Chris Billam-Smith has a chance to create a legacy. This is the biggest event they've ever had on the South Coast. This is bigger than they have on the Premier League football days. They have 11,000. This is another level for this city. The licensing, everyone that's been involved, Bournemouth Football Club, everyone's got behind him, and he has a chance to create legacy. He's worked very hard for this, but this is something we're very proud of, because his dream was to fight in Bournemouth. Never mind, do what he's done. Have a fight of the year, almost knockout of the year in December, and then get to fight for a world title against none other than Lawrence Okolie on Saturday night. It's a special time.
Do you feel like Okolie has a lot to prove after the David Light fight? Everything that come with it, a lacklustre performance, fans, visibly weren't happy with that. Yeah. Do you feel like he has a lot to prove for this one?
It was the perfect fight for him. He needed this fight. I think I spoke with Sugar and he said something changed after that fight. It hurt him. He doesn't like what was said. He doesn't like the criticism. Of course, he's a world champion. He feels he's the best cruiserweight in the world, but he wants people to be entertained and wants people to watch him, and that's exciting now. He's got the bit between his teeth. He's got a new trainer. I feel like Sugar feels now he's had enough time. I think we're going to see a proper fight. I know Lawrence is coming here for a proper fight, and he's got a lot to prove, but it's the right fight for both guys. It's the right fight for Chris Billam-Smith, and it's the perfect fight for Lawrence Okolie as well.
Well, moving on, obviously the news came out sort of during the media workout of a postponement to Liam Smith versus Chris Eubank Jr. 2, the rematch. Obviously, this is a second postponement to the original one. A frustrating one for you?
Yeah, very frustrating, but more frustrating for the fighters. They've been ready for this date for a long time. I think Liam's got a nagging back injury that he's had history with, that he was convinced he'd be okay for July. It now looks like August, so we have to postpone that date, but the show goes on. And a lot of pay-per-view events, you see when the main event goes, everything goes, but Marshall Cruz is such a big fight. It's such an iconic fight for Savannah Marshall. She'll be the first woman to box at both the 2 major arenas, and she has a huge fight on her hands. That night, with Shelley Heffron, Ben Whittaker, Tasha Jonas, we're about to announce Callum Simpson against Boris Crichton, another big fight. It's a huge night. Smith Eubank, I think the new date will be announced next week, but the show goes on. That fight will happen between Chris and Liam, but gutted for them, and both of them, because it's a genuine issue for Liam Smith.
Is it 100% definitely we're definitely looking at a rematch? Because obviously where we saw before with Josh Taylor and Jack Carroll falling off, then Josh Taylor, and they both moved to sort of different ventures. Frank Smith obviously came out and said that this puts a Conor Benn fight pack on the table. Are we 100% going to see Liam Smith versus Chris Eubank Jr. 2 next? Is that 100% next for Chris Eubank Jr.?
100%. I mean, there's postponement clauses in these contracts. That's what happens as a natural course for this fight, and both fighters still want the fight. I think both fighters still want the fight. Conor Benn is he's still got a lot of things to get through, and we'll be rescheduling the fight in August. Hopefully myself and Calla can announce the date next week.
So is this something that Calla was happy with? Because previously, before for the July 1st date, something that he was sort of, I've done an interview with him and he asked for medical evidence, talked about frustrations. Is there a lot of communication with Wasserman when you're sort of postponing dates?
Yeah, on this one, that's why it's taken us a while. We've had to get both sides happy with everything, and it's difficult. Everyone's frustrated. I'm frustrated. We've now putting our hand in the pocket and putting an event not on pay-per-view at the Manchester Arena, which is a huge card, and Smith Eubank has to be rescheduled. That's a logistical, a thing for us as a promoter. It's frustrating for me, it's frustrating for Calla, it's frustrating for Liam, it's frustrating for Chris. But we have to postpone the event, but we'll have a new date next week.
Was the July 1st date, was there any sort of postponements where, did anything sort of come down to medical evidence? Because obviously there was a delay in the medical evidence coming. Was it effective when they seen it, they wanted to postpone it even more, or was it just a sort of choice down to Liam Smith?
Look, I think Liam obviously is injured. Wasserman then expects medical evidence of that. That's been passed and that's going through at the moment. But the fact is, Liam Smith can't fight on July 1st. He can fight in August, and we'll reschedule the date.
Well, another thing I sort of wanted to touch on, we saw undercard announcements for the York Hall card on June the 16th. The Azim brothers back out, Vidal O'Reilly against Anis Taj for the rematch. A massive sort of night at York Hall. I think when I saw it, I did say to both the brothers, it seems a little bit too small for them, I see it's going to be packing out, so expecting a busy night at York Hall?
You know what, Adam wanted to box at York Hall. He wanted to headline. He said it when he debuted. Azim Fania headlines. Obviously, you've got Caroline Dubois in a huge fight against Lascano. For her to be taking on that, I think deserves a lot of credit. We feel she's the most talented fighter in British boxing, in women's boxing, and she takes a huge fight. Frazer Clarke against Maurice Wack. That's another big fight and big step up for Frazer. McKenna Thompson, which is an unbelievable fight, and Vidal Riley on the card as well. It's a huge night for York Hall. Yes, we could have done Wembley, but for Adam Azim, this is a rite of passage. It's a tough fight, and it's a huge night on June 16th, and something we had to deliver for Adam Azim.
Just sort of mentioned Frazer Clarke there. What is sort of the relationship now with you? Is it sort of you're positive, you're smiles again now?
100%. Listen, Frazer Clarke wants to fight anyone. We're responsible for his development. It was frustrating for me, it's frustrating for fans, I understand it. But the fact is, and the way I think about it is, if Fabio Wardley was in our stable and Frazer Clarke was in our stable, that wouldn't be the fight that's next for Frazer Clarke. We want to make that fight. We're confident the fight happens this year, and that's all it is. And sometimes you have to make that decision.
And then sort of just the last one, that's sort of difficult thing to ask. But obviously Eddie Hearn came out and said that he wants you to publicise the offer. Is that something that you're willing to do if Eddie Hearn said it and Fabio Wardley both said it?
If Fabio Wardley's management say it, then of course, yeah.
Ben, thank you for your time, mate. I appreciate it. And all the best. I'm sure I'll be catching up with you later on the week. Thank you, mate.
Cheers, mate.